This is William Robinson, Wizard of Austin for ViralHair.com, talking with John Messenger, best-selling author, about some things concerning being an exhibitor at con and what people should do when they come to the convention. First question, Mr. Messenger, what have you learned from, well, first of all, what was the first convention you worked as an author?
So I did a lot of smaller book conventions, but really the first big convention I did was a couple of years ago at Denver Comic Con. And that was the first opportunity to really set up on something at this scale and see what works and doesn't work for this level.
Cool. Now, as an exhibitor, what have you do you do now that you didn't do when you first started conventions?
Well, I think when I first started, one of the first things I thought was that the books would sell themselves. And I think that's a common mistake that a lot of people make, is that you have a really good product and it may be a fantastic product, but there's certain things that you have to do, ways that you have to get a little more personable with people in order to get your stuff out there. So I made a lot of mistakes, especially trying to just set everything out right in everyone's way and kind of hide behind it myself.
Right.
And it really took a while to realize that you are part of your marketing. And so it's not just getting the books out there, but getting your face out there as well, which is why on the new setups like I have now, there's a lot more open space so I can actually stop and talk to people.
Okay, so this setup you have now works better for you then as far as what you're selling and how you're doing things?
It does. It seems a little counterintuitive, but being able to set multiple series up in one rack on the far side still draws people's attention, but gets it all out of the way, and that way it really opens it up.
Now, have you ever, besides having a booth at a convention, actually been an attendee at a convention?
I have. So of course I started off, I'm a giant geek at heart.
Okay, so what do you recommend somebody who's never been to a convention, how should they prepare to come to one?
I think that my biggest mistake was underestimating the amount of time, especially if you want to meet the stars while you're here. That's incredibly time consuming. So number one, I definitely wear good shoes. Number two, if you can hydrate beforehand, do it, because otherwise you're spending $5 on a bottle of water. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. But the other thing is definitely allot your time and figure out what you really want to see. If you're going to be here for 3 days, it's like going to Disney World. You don't try to do all of Disney World in one day. You figure out bits and pieces you want to see each day, and you hit those up.
Now, even though you have a table to attend, do you still get to have any time for your own here, or is there anything about where you're here selling your stuff?
I definitely try to take time. I made my mistake, my first big convention, was actually going out and spending probably most of my time away from my table. Just because, again, I'm a giant geek at heart, and if you have Stan Lee at a convention, I'm going to definitely try to find a way to go meet him. But of course, you're here to sell, and you've spent the money up front to get a booth, and you should definitely try to sell your product. But I still try to take time away. I've got 2 kids, and I definitely want to find stuff for them while I'm here, and so I'll definitely take the time to walk around.
Now, quick author question: what probably inspires the way your work flows, or how things come together for you guys?
As a writer. You're talking about the actual process itself?
Yeah.
For me, one of the interesting things about my books, and even though if you look at the cover art on a lot of it, it's a lot of beautiful people, one of the things I got really tired of in the literary world was this trope where every time you meet a stranger, they're the most beautiful person you've ever met. And it's in a lot, especially in the young adult genre, where you see that all the time. And what I wanted to start introducing, and what I started doing with my books, was trying to find an interesting, different take on that. So again, my cover artist made my characters beautiful, but she obviously didn't read the description that said that they're not all that attractive. But the same thing with, for instance, the series that I'm standing in front of right here is a steampunk series. And what I wanted to do was take those same cliches when it came to werewolves and vampires and things like that and kind of flip it on its head. And that's kind of how I do the writing process. I come up with a creative idea that kind of does a tangent off of what people expect out of it. And then from there, I'm a huge outliner. I will sit down and I'll spend a month straight doing research and outlining before I ever start putting words to paper. But once I do, I have a pretty rigid schedule where I try to do at least an hour of writing every day. And if I stick to that, I can usually publish a book or finish writing a book in about 4 months.
And last question. What is the probably oddest thing you've seen, without naming description or names, somebody do at a con made you stop or take a second look at things?
I don't know if odd is really the word that I would use, but there's a couple a couple moments from previous cons that really stick out in my mind that I've actually been telling people about today. One was probably one of the most impressive ways to draw people to a booth. I was at a convention where there were a lot more authors. And so it's kind of hard when you have a whole lot of authors crammed next to each other to stand out, or to really stand out in the crowd. But she had set up an old school typewriter and invited people to come by and type just a single sentence that continued from the previous sentence before it. And it seems so simplistic, but she had a line of people like going down the way. You would think she was a movie star. And it was incredible, something that simple. But on the exact opposite end of that spectrum, there was a corner booth at a convention not too long ago where I was sitting at my booth, and I noticed there was just a huge crowd down there. And I went down to figure out why, and it was an artist. And his artwork was okay. I mean, I'm not putting down his artwork by any means. But his girlfriend was incredibly attractive, and she was dressed in the most skimpy cosplay outfits I had ever seen. And as soon as I realized that, I took a step back and realized 95% of the people were guys standing around the booth.
That's interesting things is, I guess, people find it a comfort themselves.
Sex sells.
It does, unfortunately. Okay, Ms. Winslow, well, thank you for your time. I hope your show goes well.
Thank you much.